Hey everyone, this is the WG-KMS meeting for May 24th. This is our 16th meeting. I don't know if we have an agenda or stuff for today, but I think top of mind for me is what can we do to try to move the CAP forward? So we've gone ahead and put it on the agenda again for tomorrow's SIGOT meeting. Anything else we can do to maybe try to move this forward?
When is the CAP deadline? Is it 2 weeks from now?
But I was.
I think it's 3 weeks. It's like mid-June, like the 16th or something.
We're on 125, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at enhancements freeze is June 16th. Yeah. So they did push it a little bit forward. So we have
Yeah, we have
a little bit of time. So that's good, but like this is still a really large cap with a brand new API with barely no review. So yeah. That's what we
Does it happen often that it's hard to find a reviewer and that because of that we missed a deadline?
Could you repeat your question, Christoph? Because I think I missed the first part.
Okay, so does it happen often that that a cap is not gonna make it because there are no reviewers available?
Yes. Roughly speaking, I think most of enhancements exception requests are basically like, hey, like it took XYZ like a while to get into place, but like, by the way, we've like already implemented most of the code. We just like finally got around to actually getting all the paperwork in order. And I know it stresses out the enhancements folks because they aren't following the code, right? So they don't know the state of things, and they really do frown on last minute things. So yeah, I don't want to get to the state where we have to ask for an exception, right? Like exceptions have to be in by, I guess, July, but I don't know. I don't want to be arguing with the enhancements team that, hey, I'm making an alpha thing, so I should be allowed to go outside of the release cycle, right?
Yeah, I think there were few comments from Mike, and I think we've answered all of those and updated based on his review feedback. So there's nothing outstanding. So hopefully, if we bring it up again tomorrow, we'll get more reviews on it, and then we can get it to a state where we can merge it by next week.
Yeah, like in 125, if we can have the cap, set as implementable with the alpha bits there, like that means we can basically at our own pace start working on implementing the work in its own sandbox, right? And if nothing is in like a great state in 125, like it's okay, like it's not a big deal. It's the fact that we're able to make progress without coordinating with a bunch of other people, and that's where the value for me is right, because like I've been really busy the last few weeks, but sometimes I'm not busy, so like I go through those cycles. So those don't necessarily line up with Kubernetes release windows and enhancements release. So I think my biggest concern is like if someone is like basically like try to fix the beta API in place, I really don't want to try to do that. It's just because then you have to like get every bit of backwards compatibility just right.
Are there even people interested in doing that?
Well, like one of Mike's questions was like, what prevents a plugin from using a key hierarchy today? I was like, well, technically nothing. It's just that it's like basically a hack then, right? Instead of like an actual supported feature, you're like sort of forcing it in. And I was like, but when you combine that with a desire to change the storage format, the RPC schema, and the key rotation bits, like when you have all of those together, like yes, I could try to very carefully insert those into the beta API. really strongly hope I don't break it and destroy people's clusters by encrypting their data wrong. Or I could just do it in a sandbox on his own and very carefully build it out and test it. So
Yeah, and I guess like also only allowing these kind of features to be available in the new Alpha API also can make the users do the transition to the new API, because like if we don't bring any value with this new API, how are we going to motivate them to do the transition, right?
yeah, I mean, so certainly that aspect is there. There's also, because these are separate sort of encryption concepts within the encryption config, you can have both of them at the same time, right? So it makes the migration story really nice, which is that whenever you're ready, you add the new V2 API as one of your read keys. At some point, then you can turn it into a write key after you've done your coordination and everything, and you get a really graceful path. Whereas if you were like messing with the beta API in place, we would basically be trying to do the migration for you over release boundaries. I just don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah.
I do think there is a certain aspect of the beta API is already deployed and used, and so there's an inertia to that, and we are creating work for all the current deployers of beta. I do feel like the V2 changes provide enough value to warrant that, right? And maybe the answer is a very long deprecation window for the beta APIs.
Yeah.
That way,
Yeah, I would say so. Because at the end of the day, you have to take a decision regarding beta. Like you cannot leave it as beta forever. Like it needs to be either stable or deprecated. That's the two directions that it can go in. And after like all the discussion we had, it's clear that we cannot just make it stable because like there is so many things in the API to change already. So the correct path should be a deprecation, even though maybe longer since it has been already like in place for a while, and it depends on like plugins and stuff like that. But I think pushing the users to move to alpha is the correct answer.
Yeah, and like one of the places where we've sort of left a beta API for at least for now is like client door credential plugins. They went GA in like 122 or whatever, but the beta API is still there, and we so far haven't decided on when to remove it because it's an API basically implemented by kubectl and that type of right. It's deployed to clients, and it's much harder to like go update all your clients. Whereas this API is completely opaque to the outside world, right? So all we're talking about is like doing careful rolling upgrades of your API servers, which you have to do once per release anyway. So if we give you a bunch of releases to do this over, like I don't think we're necessarily asking for a lot. This is assuming that our reference implementation is very easy to use, or our reference library is very easy to build a production-ready implementation of the V2 API for the different providers. I would say it must be.
Didn't at some point we mentioned that we wanted to kind of meet with some of the plugins maintainer upstream that are still using like the beta API to see like kind of gather their feedback about maybe the new announcement, as well as like their kind of maybe like their fear regarding like the migration to the new API and like what that will involve for them, and if like they are ready to do this kind of step.
Yes, we had. So maybe the first step there is to look at the contributors for the 3 cloud provider open source ones and try to tag them on the KEP. Be like, hey, you appear to be maintaining one of these.
Yeah,
I'm about to create work for you. Would you like to read the KEP? Anish, did you work on the Azure one? Or was
I maintain that one, so we have one. Yes.
we have 1 + 1 because you're like, that's fine, like because I'm already ready for this. I love the context.
Totally on board.
Okay, so we just have to find the GKE and yes. folks.
I think it can be good feedback because like they will be the one impacted by that. Even though like we will bring a library that they will be able to reuse a lot, like they will still have to do some work.
I'm just gonna leave myself a comment on this. This cap.
Should we decide also on a deadline to find reviewers for this cap? Like, let's say if we don't find any more reviewer by the end of this week, then we go with like Mike as an approver or something like that.
I mean, yeah, I think we basically have to make that decision tomorrow and say off, right? Basically,
Okay.
hello, you're the only people that can do this. Yeah. Anyone care to do it? And if we need, like, if we are having a hard time finding someone that has enough bandwidth or whatever, even if they're like willing but they don't have bandwidth right now, we could try to say that we won't go to beta until we have basically a very thorough review of code and kept. That way, the alpha you can just delete at any time, right? That's kind of the point. So that might alleviate concerns. I mean, I'm not trying to rush this thing into a beta. My experience with beta is you better make sure it's basically ready for V1 because people treat it as V1 once it has the beta tag. So I'm going to ask for a pretty high bar. What else is on folks' mind?
With the reference implementation, I created a pull request. And I'm slightly hesitant to continue until I get some, +1s or feedback or anything, because I would not like to develop on top of something that might be completely kind of thrown away, as we did with the Think one. So yeah, it would be cool if you.
I 100% agree. don't keep trekking on without feedback. I do apologize. I have been very, very overcommitted recently. So I haven't worked on reviewing code or even really anything related to KMS stuff.
I can take a look at it by tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay, sure, definitely, and it would be cool to have a second pair of eyes on it, because sometimes when everything's in your head, it makes sense, but the other person's like, what the fuck's going on? So it always helps a lot.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you all ever have the feeling when you read some really old code and then you realize you wrote that code and you're like, and what I was doing. Why was I doing this?
Yeah, this is usually when you stop caring so much about git blame when you first time start complaining. Do git blame, see your name on
Yeah, that's good.
I think for me it will be the same. Like until cap freeze, I will have like barely any time to really focus on that. Like maybe I will be able to focus on the cap, but besides that, it will be tough. But after that's done, yeah, I will definitely have more cycles to look into KMS. I think that's mostly the case for all of us because like we're in a bit of a special period right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, personally, I am okay if nobody does anything but try to get the kept merged, because to me that is goal number one. And I would be disappointed if we didn't actually get any code like merged in 125 related to the alpha, but I wouldn't be like upset about it. It is what it is. We got a lot of stuff going on.
Because we have like 2 months of development cycle after the cap freeze, right? Or something like that.
Let's see. Code freeze is right at the beginning of August, so 1.5 months.
Oh, that's tight.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like I rather have the idea approved and work started at our own pace than to be worried about any deadline other than the enhancement phase, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe the cap is kind of big. The topic is not very clear in the minds of the reviewers. So maybe it would make sense to have a dedicated session with them or something like this, where they can like in person make questions, or they can prepare some questions. We can prepare something, maybe more mermaid charts or whatever, just to make it more pleasant for them to review it, right? So to reduce the obstacle to even start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally for high bandwidth reviews. I think the only reason the PSP v2 stuff got off the ground is because Tim and Jordan ran those meetings for basically months and just forced the people that had opinions to share their opinions and slowly work through all of the things. I don't think we're working on something nearly as controversial, but if Mike or whoever that's willing to sign up to do review and approval would prefer that, I'm totally for that. I find those to be much easier than trying to like write massive paragraphs, right? Because Mike asked the question and I tried to answer it with every bit of detail I could come up with. So like there's like a small essay written as a comment now.
Yeah.
I don't really find those fun to write just because they take a long time, and sometimes you fail to actually answer the person's question because you're answering the wrong question. But yeah, I think those types of things are great. It's hard because we all work at different companies to find overlap in our schedules. But yeah, I'm totally game for that kind of a session. I do want to be careful to make sure that we have time, but like my desired state for the KEP is that it stays as close to the code as possible over time. Obviously it's going to drift one way or the other, but I don't want to get into the situation where people read the KEP and like believe the system behaves in one way when it behaves in a completely different way because we changed our mind.
Yeah. Yeah, but we can always change the cap afterward, like graduating to beta, for example, or even before that, update the cap while doing the implementation. Like unless the feature is like stable, we have like some bandwidth to modify the cap. And even after, I guess, like if you want to update the cap to reflect what's really implemented, then I think it's always good to do so.
Yeah, no, I did that with like client or credential plugins, where I very carefully made like I can say that KEP is actually done because it 1-for-1 matches the GA implementation.
Yeah,
it's a nice feeling. Okay, other than the KEP and review on the reference implementation, do folks have other things they want to chat about? We still at least, I think we have, I forget, is this an hour-long meeting?
Yeah, it's an hour long.
Yeah. Do folks have other things they want to talk about, or do you want to take a half an hour back?
I was just thinking, like, so I have that branch in my fork, which implements the V2 stuff. So I was thinking, I will create another branch where, based on the changes that's being proposed in the KEP and all that, add the new proto, so we can have like a work in progress PR open out there. Like if you want to add the changes in bits, like I was thinking I can get started on the changes now. We don't have to wait till later. Like, do you think that's fine?
Yeah, I think it's fine. In terms of like code stuff, what I basically figured we would have is something like you described, is a shared branch on one of our forks that is open as a PR against the main KK repo, and then we would either directly commit to that branch or make PRs against that branch, whatever is comfortable. And as those get funneled into the PR branch, CI will run against it, and we can see stuff happening. And we should try to hopefully merge something in the 125 cycle. That would be nice to have something merged in. So if we feel like like as a for example, like if we wanted to have an initial PR that's just like the proto and maybe that shell script to help keep it up to date, that would be a totally fine thing to add in, and we just kind of start layering stuff on top. So, but I'm also totally fine. Like if we want to go the whole release cycle and just have one branch that we're just all working on together, that's fine. I don't think what we want is a bunch of separate PRs open, because I think we would just be fighting each other right now.
Yeah, merge conflicts, yes. But yeah, I can get started. So I was thinking at least I'll start with the feature gate and the proto. So I'll add those two in one PR, and then we can decide how we want to do after that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Cool. For the maintainers, I think for GCP, it was all Alexander, but I don't think he's at Google anymore, right?
Alex, Immutable T.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gone. He's I think he's at like a hedge fund now.
Okay. I think after that, it's been Seth who's maintaining it. So we can probably tag him, Seth Vargo.
I don't think I know this person, so sure, yeah, we can.
Yeah, I think we can tag them. Also, do you think it makes sense to create GitHub issues on the AWS and GCP repo saying like, hey, we're working on this V2 stuff. Here it is for review. Let us know if you have any feedback.
Yeah, that's fair. If that might get that might help it get broader attention from, for example, their like more product leadership. Like, they might be watching those to see if there's any feedback or whatever. Yeah, so I think that's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay.
If they don't like the issue, they can just close the issue and we'll say sorry.
Yeah, I think I can open one for GCP and AWS then.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That was exciting. Anything else, though? Anything else on anyone's mind? If not, we can give each other a half an hour back and see y'all maybe next. I don't know who I'll see tomorrow. I think Anish probably. Are you back in US time?
Yeah.
Yeah, like your background looks like I think your apartment.
Right. Yeah.
It's a different place.
Yeah.
Right. Well, at least I'll see you probably tomorrow. We can chat some more. Yeah, cool.
Cool. Thank you.
See you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.